The first game in the Valis series was released in Japan for computers and later ported to some home consoles. An enhanced remake was eventually released on the PC Engine many, many years later. Valis 2 is the sequel and was also released for home computers and consoles. But unlike before, the PC Engine got a version right away. And it was also brought to America for the TurboGrafx-16 CD-ROM. Since it was the first release on the American TurboGrafx, the number 2 had most of us scratching our heads. If we open the manual and read the story, we find that the people of Vacanti are falling into a state of war due to the death of mighty King Rogris. An evil army headed by Emperor Magus has all but defeated the followers of the previous king. But Magus does fear one thing, the legendary sword of the kingdom, Valis 2. Enter Yuko, the super hot heroine who... well, back when I was a kid, she was hot. I mean, come on, we all, Let me start over. Enter Yuko, our super brave heroine who is out to take care of Magus once and for all. And, that's the story. Welcome to the early days of CD-ROM technology, as Valis 2 begins with a really cool animated sequence. It has great sounds, creepy music, and lovely cheesy voice acting.
You are my first and my only friend.
Although it's not as bad as Last Alert, and to be honest, that's kind of a shame. This opening cutscene, as well as others appearing between stages, is fast-paced and actually really pleasing. When the gameplay finally begins, you will find it to be a side-scrolling action game. Yuko can walk, jump, shoot forward, shoot while jumping, and shoot while ducking. Yuko walks pretty fast, so the best way to go about this game is to stop and attack when an enemy appears, walk a bit more, stop again and attack, walk a bit more, etc. Her energy meter is really long, so by adopting this method, you should have no trouble getting through a stage. Even the manual offers this tactic as a playing tip. Yuko begins with a normal weapon, and by collecting icons, can change it to homing missiles, dual shot, and a cutter, which neutralizes enemy fire. All of them can be increased in power by finding the power-up icon, and honestly, the game seems to nicely hand you whatever weapon will work best in a stage. Yuko can also collect protective barriers, bonus crystals, an hourglass for freezing enemies, a crusher special attack, and more. Also, the boots speed her up, but again, she walks way too fast to begin with, so it's almost not really necessary. There are a few platforming elements like climbing, where you often can't see where you're going, and a few tricky jumps. Where did that spike go? You can also find a few alternate paths, usually leading to a bunch of icons or goodies, so there is a tiny bit of exploration here, but just a tiny bit. The Magus army she attacks ranges from catwomen, metal dragons, hopping spider things, and if that wasn't enough, there's always room for Jello. The game has a bunch of mini-bosses in each stage, and often they appear multiple times. At the end of a stage, you get a warning. Uh-oh. And then...
Come, warrior Vari! Let's engage in combat!
Haha, maybe the voice acting does get wonderfully cheesy after all.
I am Hyzen the Ruthless. I am here to avenge my mother.
Ah, that is music to my ears. Most of the bosses have easy patterns, and if you get to them with high energy, firing away will usually do the trick. So there is a lot of stuff to power up with, and some neat enemies. But the game overall feels a bit average. You get that emptiness feeling. Do you know what I mean? Shouldn't that feel satisfying? It really doesn't. And here is a special attack. Ready? Yeah, that's it. a screen flash. It is hard to describe that emptiness feeling you get when playing an average game, but it is present here for a lot of it. The look of Valis 2 is definitely a mixed bag. At the beginning, the graphics are very disappointing, especially considering the cool design of the cutscenes. Then the second stage begins, the colors pop a bit more, and you'll notice the game continues to look better as it goes along. There are some nice touches, like when Yuko changes clothes to correspond with the cutscenes that came before. I can't say anything is really truly horrible, but that emptiness feeling does creep in. The music is CD-ROM quality great, and I like most of the tunes. The sound effects, however, could have been a little bit better. I mean, splat and boom. I mean, they seem to be the only ones. Now, they are recessed into the background quite a bit, overshadowed by the music, which is probably a good thing in the end. Yuko has pretty responsive controls, and this is really good. Her jump is a bit sloppy as she has a glide, making timing somewhat difficult. But I do like the fact she can jump down from platforms by holding down and hitting jump. It's quick and it's great. Most of her movements aren't bad overall, so flip that button 2 turbo switch up and fire away. When Yuko bites the big one, she continues almost right where she left off. If battling with a boss, she rematerializes right away. You begin with 2 extra lives, and more can be had along the way. When a stage is cleared, the game will automatically save into the memory, so you can return to where you left off at a later time. But I have to be honest, as a kid as well as today, I beat the game in literally 1 pass. So this was never required. The 6 stages fly by pretty quickly. Some feel a bit overly long, but I think it's more due to that emptiness feeling than anything else. Valis 2 was one of those CD-ROM games that showed off what the technology was great at in its early days. It has nice animated sequences, CD quality music, voice acting, and of course, the game is stored onto a CD. The gameplay itself, however, is rather average, with some uninspired level design. Plus, once you get the rhythm of firing down, it is also very easy. From a nostalgic standpoint, and taking into account the time it was released, there is still some enjoyment to be had from this one. And let's not forget, it does have that little bit of CD-ROM cheese.
To fight is my destiny. Absolute truth is even more powerful than mere physical force.
Magus, fighting only brings sadness and pain.
You tell him, Yuko. Ha, you're so hot. What? Overall, Valis 2 is an average game of platforming, but it does shine in other areas that were prominent in those early days. I could not quite recommend it, but it does have its charm and a place in both CD-ROM and Valis series history. Now, this is not to say that you won't have some fun with it, because you will, but that emptiness feeling it emotes keeps the game from really standing above the average.